Candace Owens crushes a leftist pirate. That's not a joke, guys. I know it sounds ridiculous. This guy's a legit pirate, the arg and everything. It's a cringe fest, but it's great. I personally enjoyed it. I got a great chuckle out of it, and I think you guys will too. So we're gonna get right into the video, guys. But first, please make sure you like our video, share it around, and subscribe to the Resist the Mainstream YouTube channel. As always, I'm your host, Arian, and be sure to subscribe because who doesn't want to see Candace crush more pirates? I know I do. So please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. All right, guys, let's get into the clip.
Oh my gosh, I literally love this outfit because... No, it's okay. I was just saying I love your outfit because literally my son right now loves Peter Pan, and I just bought him the hook. So this is incredible. I love that. Go ahead.
All right, so can you mateys hear me?
Pardon?
Can you mateys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, so my question for you was, I believe in high school you had a racial discrimination lawsuit, and you received $50,000 from your school as a result of this. And you've recently claimed that, like, racism isn't, like, such a big deal. So are you interested in perhaps giving that money back, or, like, what's the plan there?
So you're not educated about my life, and I'm very happy to educate you. And by the way, the best way to get educated about my life is to purchase my book, where I talked about this in chapter 2. I do just want to tell you that, because it's remarkable to me that I wrote about this extensively in my book, and people always think this is a gotcha. They're like, gotcha, this happened to you in high school. Yeah, it's actually the reason I am conservative, is because of this thing that happened to me in high school, which was a race incident that involved a kid that was my best friend, and he... You know, I got a boyfriend, that's the truth, and stopped hanging out with all my friends, as high school girls do. Totally innocent, normal situation. And one night, he obviously had too much to drink and got 3 people who I had never heard of or met to leave really horrific racist messages. Now, I've never once said that racism doesn't exist. That's something that was created by the root, and people keep saying I've said it. Actually, I say the exact opposite. Racism will always exist as long as human beings exist, as human beings are ignorant, right? And that's when you meet somebody that's actually racist, they're just ignorant. It's the people that I'm like, I could never even be offended by you being a racist because I'm going to be so far ahead of you in life. It's ridiculous, right? But going back to the story, this kid used to be my friend. He was upset that I stopped hanging out with him, and unfortunately, one of the people that left these messages happened to be the governor of Connecticut's son. Wow. So this turned overnight into a political sensational story. It's my first introduction to the media, my first introduction to the NAACP, who showed up at the front of my school, had never talked to me, but tried to raise money off of real hurt that I was going through. Nobody tried to sit down and actually resolve the situation. Was the kid a racist? Well, obviously not, because we were best friends for years, right? Was he hurt? Yes. Did he say racist things? Yes. That situation, and by the way, the money refund that you're talking about was because while this was a huge news cameras outside event, homeschooled. I had to stay home and homeschool and get private tutoring while this was going on until the FBI could trace these phone calls. So if you're stepping to the plate to tell me that that's not right, that, you know, you got reimbursed for being out of school, you're making not a very valid point, I don't think. But the moral of what my lesson was that people are raising money. What I learned from it was people are literally raising money off of racism. The NAACP never wants racism to go away. Okay, they want, because they can fund on finding it everywhere, and they didn't care about the fact that I was a young teenager. I learned a lesson about the media. It's all about selling headlines and selling your story and your point of view, and nobody looked at me or those boys, for matter. One of them was 12 and was being called a racist, and it impacted the rest of that kid's life.
The media going after a child and calling them racist and evil. Does that sound familiar? We'll talk about that more in a bit. I think you guys are going to like this example.
Like, I mean, these kids were suicidal, on drugs, plenty of arrests after it, because that's how traumatic it was to have adults rush, and instead of adulting, labeling kids for the rest of their lives without trying to get to the root of the situation. So I appreciate the Captain Hook heroic attempt to catch me at my own game. But I am very proud of what I went through in high school, and I thank God for it, because it woke me up to a lot of the things that we're facing today in our society. And thank you so much for your question.
Hang tight, guys, because we have another Candace clip coming here for you in just a moment. I will say, I do, even though Captain Cook was, or Captain Cringe, as I would call him, even though that was a little bit of a, let's say, peculiar display, I do respect him being a good sport and, you know, doing a little hook clap at the end there. He came out with kind of a disingenuous false argument, got called out on it, and hey, he was a good sport, smiled, clapped after. So respect to Captain Cook or Captain Hook, whatever his name is. I really like that example Candace brought up about how the media went after these kids, one of them even being 12 years old, and basically tried to destroy their lives because of what they did. Now, this of course doesn't excuse what they said or did. Obviously it was terrible, and adults should tell them that and then work to resolve the situation. Does that mean a 12-year-old kid is irredeemable and evil for the rest of his life? Of course not. And no decent or moral person would believe that. These examples really remind me of the Covington Catholic kids. You guys remember that? Specifically, Nicholas Sandmann, a then 16-year-old kid. This example is even more extreme than what Candace is talking about, arguably, because in this case, Nick Sandmann, along with the other kids, but especially Sandmann, were accused of racism when there was literally zero evidence it ever happened. The story was basically a made-up lie and a hoax. Remember the whole narrative the media pushed about it? We had Nick Sandmann, he was wearing a MAGA hat. There's this older guy from an Indian tribe, Elder Nathan Phillips, an overgrown child who's in his 60s at the time, and he came up to the kids and was beating a drum in Nicholas Sandmann's face. Boom, 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 boom. What did Nick do? He just sat there, smiling about it. Not a big deal. Some fake news journalists came in, took pictures. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. This led to fake news media outlets like the CNN and Washington Post launching false stories on Sandmann, saying he's a racist. He was yelling, build the wall, as if that's a racist thing to say. Ridiculous, but that's another discussion. Doing tomahawk gestures, making fun of this guy because he's an Indian or, Native American. Sorry, did I ruffle some feathers there? No pun intended, I swear. This whole narrative was, oh, he's racist and evil and irredeemable. We literally had left-wing journalists calling for violence against these kids, okay? One of them who was pushing for violent actions was Reza Aslan. The guy's a jerk, by the way, but neither here nor there. You can look into him if you're curious about that. At the end of this, CNN and Washington Post actually were forced to settle with Sandmann in court for an undisclosed sum of money. I don't know what the amount was, but I hope it was at least tens of millions of dollars, because what they did was just totally evil and wrong. They lied about him, severely damaged his reputation, and likely caused him a lot of grief and really screwed with his life in ways that aren't frankly fixable. All this to say, there are many examples of left-wing media savagely and evilly going after kids who have made mistakes in their life. And that is disgusting and ought to be reprimanded at every level. So I really appreciate and respect Candace for acknowledging that, even in a case where she was attacked in a way that she didn't deserve back when she was in high school. Speaking of crappy schools, let's watch a clip where Candace Owens addresses that exact thing.
Hello, thank you for both being here. I'm coming to you as a wife, an entrepreneur, but most importantly, a mother. My younger elementary school son came back from school last year about a book that he read in the public library about how a boy could be a girl, like a colorful child book, and I'm getting emotional over it because as a mother, how do you combat this, or how do you look at your son and explain to him these huge moments when your 6-year-old and 5-year-old is looking at you asking all these questions, like mother to mother? I guess I'm just coming for advice at this point.
Ever heard of that book, Genderqueer? Disgusting stuff. If you haven't, look into it. They're literally giving this to kids in public school libraries in a bunch of these leftist public school districts. Just revolting.
Mother to mother, I can't wait till my child is of the school age because I'm going to raise hell. I hear these things and I get excited. I get excited when I hear these things. I really do. Try it on my kids. I mean, people don't understand. When I say that I'm a mother bear, try it on my kids. If you want to watch me breathe actual fire from my mouth, try it on my kids. And that is the attitude that every single mother needs to have. We need to adopt the attitude of recognizing that this was ever intentional by design to remove parents, remove mothers from being the CEO of their homes, transferring them to the workforce so that the government, the Department of Education, could raise your children and indoctrinate them. The only way that you're going to reverse that is to fight it head on. They were scared. When mothers began showing up at school board meetings, they didn't know what to do, right? They had never seen it before. Mothers didn't go to school board meetings. What do you mean moms have to work a 9-to-5 job like dad? They don't like that we're starting to pay attention. I quite literally, oh my goodness, when my kids go to school, I'm going to be in that principal's office so much. I'm like, what are we wearing today? What are we wearing for school? Because I'm not going to let it fly a single moment. Again, this is when I am calling upon mothers to act like Karens. If it is up to us. Women become the CIA, the FBI. Let you want to find one detail about a guy on Instagram. You know how it is, girls. We'll be like, actually, his sister likes to golf. We need to employ those skills of uniquely set of skills that women have. True. And we need to give them to our children, and we need to use them to exercise dominion over our children. We're fighting right now a custody battle over our children with the state every single day. So You need to not get upset. You need to channel that upset, and you need to make sure that you affect change. Become problematic for that school in saying that I'm not going to allow this to slide. I'm going to make sure that this is okay. I'm going to network with other parents, and I'm going to raise hell until this situation changes. It must change, and I think it's going to begin to change. So I'm starting to see mothers realize what's actually happening.
Boom, boom. Candace with the 1-2 punch. You love to see it. No, in all seriousness though, her fiery spirit is great. I totally agree. It really makes me think of the COVID outbreak, we'll say. I don't want to get YouTube to go all crazy on us, but so many parents at the time were having their children subjected to just massive evils. And I remember personally having conversations with them where I'd say like, are you gonna put up with this? Like, this is not okay. And they'll say, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't control the school, blah, 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 blah. And I remember just thinking like, you're pathetic. And I hate to say that, but it really is my honest thought. I thought about that about many parents because their kids were actively suffering at the hands of disgusting tyrants who just hate their children. It's very clear. And they just let it go and be like, well, what am I supposed to do? I have to go to work. I can't do anything, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, figure it out. They're your kid, for God's sakes. Do something. We'll wrap up the clip there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really hope you enjoyed it. Please comment below. Let us know what you liked, what you want to see next, and we'll see you guys again soon. Thank you, and God bless.